Hi, I'm Meta Spencer, and I'm very happy to welcome you today to our show, The World Repair Shop. This is a new show for people who are interested in repairing the world's issues. And there are six global issues that we're all going to be concerned about saving the world from. So, Project Save the World is welcoming everybody to take part in these conversations. Today, I have a conversation with a new friend, Andre Sheldon, who is in Boston or the Boston area. I think you live in Newton, Massachusetts, don't you? And
Yes.
he's an organizer. I guess we could say that. I don't know whether that's your uh, regular profession, but at any rate, you're clearly very deeply engaged with trying to organize a social movement. So, welcome, Andre.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes. Well, we have many things in common because we're trying to save the world, and
Yes.
it takes all the help we can get.
That's yes.
So it's nice to see you, and I want you to begin, if you will, to tell me about this movement that you're trying to organize to unify all the groups in the world that are working for peace and nonviolence. And I think you're especially interested in helping save the children and going through women, right? So
Yes.
these you're
Yes. I've been very fortunate to be working on a plan for a new global peace movement. And it's a people movement so that the people in every country can participate for peace.
Mhm.
And the main thrust of it is that it's a Gandhi King like movement of nonviolence. So I call it a global movement of nonviolence for the children. And the children are the motivation for everyone to unite around the world because our world now is in crisis. World leaders have been saying they need action because we're spending so much money on the military that we need to though divert those funds and reallocate it towards the crises of the world. COVID is the perfect example.
Mhm.
And so it's my belief that we need a stimulus, something to bring everyone together. And we can do it right now for many reasons. And but the main stimulus is that if women are the first to rise up and unite as the peacemakers, everyone else will follow. But there right now, there's always obstacles. But just as an example, this morning I got an email, and I can put it on a share here, from a youth group that's working for climate change. And they stated that there was a need for them just rising up because the the people in power aren't listening to them. So here, their quote in red is fantastic and profound. And it says exactly what the women will do on a global level, is the proposal to say, here's what we're doing. We're not going to wait for you anymore. We want to do something special because we need it and we don't want violence anymore. And then, therefore, we don't want our children to be going to war. So, as the main top reason why we have to stop violence is we want to stop the worst type of violence of all, war. So a global movement of nonviolence is an anti-war movement, but it's so much more. It's also a movement of goodwill because nonviolence says, don't be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not a threat to you. And that's the basis of the whole project.
Mhm. That says a lot right there. I
Yeah.
think that the effectiveness of nonviolent movements, when they do things like protest or try to interfere with the routine actions of government or industries that are destructive, when they try to block those, the success rate apparently depends very largely on how many people show up. And, like in the streets or participating in other ways in the movement. And that's key indicator of how successful a movement's going to be. And the reason people do or don't show up is largely determined by whether or not they expect it's going to be violent or not. If it's a nonviolent movement, more people will show up. And therefore, in at least until recently, nonviolent movements have had a much greater level of success, twice as much success as violent movements.
Yes,
So you're really onto something, no doubt about it.
yes, thank you very much. Well, all my research shows that the people do not want violence. They abhor violence. When and reports come from India where there's some tragic violent action, and the whole world says, oh, this is crazy, we don't want this. But there's one main element that I found that is very important. Over the past year, there were 17 countries that had movements with no violence. But the little tweak that I'm trying to add to it is to propose and say that we're not just adhering to nonviolence, we're going to make it the goal and be overt about it, because people everywhere are suffering. And right now it's going to get worse. COVID is making the whole world into a crisis, which will lead to the economic despair, which leads to war. But more than that, the people want to be affiliated with something bigger and larger than they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why this plan is designed to try and get everyone's attention and unite under one umbrella, nonviolence. So in my poster right here, this is just a proposal that Nobel laureate Lema Gbowee from Liberia would announce to the world that we're starting a new global peace movement, a global movement of nonviolence. So we issue a call to women, a worldwide unity campaign, to ask women to be first and then invite the men. So it's not just exclusive to women. We need everybody. But who's going to be first on the dance floor?
Okay, well, you're male and I'm female, so I'm not quite sure. Maybe we can dance together.
Exactly right.
That's
a good way to put it.
Good. Okay. Now, when we talked the other day, by the way, can the poster behind you, the two posters are a little blurry. Can you read them to me aloud?
Oh, yes.
What we're seeing?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lema Gbowee says, the time has come for women around the world to rise up and unite in every country. Therefore, I am issuing a call to women, a worldwide unity campaign.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the exhibit below is a scale. And it's on one end of the scale, it's being weighted down by all the obstacles in the world, the economic, the military, the patriarchal world, holding down the scale for equality and change. We have to try and balance those scales. Mm-hmm. So by uniting with a worldwide unity campaign, we'll then balance the scale. But we need women to be the first ones to now pile onto this so we can balance the scale.
Well, women already, as I understand it, have an unusually high proportion of representation in various peace organizations. They do a lot of the work. And that's always been the case. I think women, if you look at public opinion polls, usually there's a discrepancy between male and female opinions on various social issues, and with the women being more peace-minded and also more oriented toward devoting resources to healthcare and social services and things of that kind. So it is true that women, as long as they are able and willing and sort of a mindset to take a leadership role. I think that's often been the problem, that women have not been, they do the Joe jobs, the hard work and behind the scenes lots of times, at least in the past, without necessarily being out front as the leader.
Yes, but there are women's initiatives that are fantastic right now in the world. When
Exactly.
President Trump was elected, there was a call for women, and they had the first Women's March on Washington, which
Mhm.
went global. And so it wasn't
Yeah,
just,
I wonder if you know anything about how that was organized, because it was an amazing, when Trump was first elected, it was the first day or two after his election, they were there in droves, and how in such a short order they got so many women together. I don't know who did the organizing. Well, have you been in touch with the people who helped make that happen?
well, there were three women that originally were online, and they sent out a message to each other on Facebook, I believe, that said, "Oh, let's get together and have a march on Washington." And it went viral. And that was within 3 or 4 days of them texting, posting
See, the
on.
interesting thing is I don't even know the names of those women. And I
Well,
wasn't in a position to go anyway, although I am an American citizen and I feel strongly, very, very much the same way those women do. But I wouldn't have been able to go just because I don't have, I'm too old. But
well,
um,
what they originally
I
did.
actually did not, I didn't know. Do you know the names of these three women? Or do
Well, there's one woman in particular. Her name has a sort of a male type name, Bob Bland. She was one of the three. But then they realized they needed actual people that had experience in organizing. And they went out and they got four other women. I'm sorry, three other women. Bob Bland is one of them. And they then organized. And within a 2-month period, they had this up and running in Washington, D.C., with all the big screens and the networking. That's the power of the internet. But what it did was prove to me that in a short period of time, that this could happen, a big organization can happen. And then the more importantly is that there's other groups too. The Me Too movement, that's big around the world. Then there's a group of women that came together, Christine Ahn from California, an American Korean, mobilized and united women leaders, Nobel laureates, Medea Benjamin from Code Pink, which I proudly wear the button of Code Pink
okay,
every day of my life.
really?
And it says Women for Peace.
Oh boy. Okay, well, I've seen Medea Benjamin on on a video or on TV or something being carried out. She
That's right.
burst onto the scene and took over the mic or something like that, and the guards came and dragged her away. She
Yes.
was
But she's
she was
dynamic.
shouting our way. Whatever her message was, she kept bellowing this message, and they dragged her away.
That's right. Meta.
So,
But,
really, it takes something very special to do it that way. I think
but,
I probably couldn't have
but
done
there's
it.
something about, there's one element about Medea is
Yeah.
that she's brilliant. So
Yeah. Yeah.
she
She
does those as tactics, but she knows what's going on around the world.
yeah.
She
Yeah.
can, right off the top of her head, tell you everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
She
So
was here
here,
in Toronto a couple of years ago. The Canadian Voice of Women is one, you may be familiar with them. They are quite a venerable women's peace organization in Canada. Started back in oh my goodness, I should know when. I don't remember when, but I do remember that Lester B. Pearson's wife, when when he was the prime minister, I believe his wife was a member of the Voice of Women, which, added a lot of luster to that organization. I belong, but I belong to a lot of things, but they do a lot of really excellent work. And every year they have some big uh, lunch meeting or something where they invite a lot of people. And I remember that Medea came and was one of the speakers about 2 years ago, maybe
Yeah.
something like
But
that.
the interesting part from my standpoint, trying to start a new global movement, is that the women have already practiced organizing. When the students were killed in Parkland, Florida, and they started their own group called March for Our Lives, they wanted to have then a nationwide movement. And they were up and running again within 2 months. And who helped them? Women's March on Washington, because they had the experience. And so they've practiced mobilizing and practiced promoting. So around the world, that can happen again. It needs leadership, because first, it's a grassroots movement. There's no question. But the movements are everywhere, and they're trying to unite. And women can bring them together. And with the uniting, then there's other elements that come into play, and that is for the children. So it's not just we're out there in the streets with our signs, but there's also a pragmatic program for creating change and for uniting. And that's working for programs for the children.
Mhm.
So there's a plan for a new philanthropic foundation that will fund the movement and fund constructive segment, which is a Gandhi segment. And through the philanthropic foundation, that'll show people around the world that there's something positive going on, and it'll make them feel good. I want to tell you, when I've gone around and promoted this to people, when I'm done, it makes me feel great. So I'm sure that others will see the same thing. But it also surprises people when I tell them that there's going to be a global movement of nonviolence with women leading the way. I've had women that are experienced professionals tell me that I gave them the chills. And that just warms my heart. And it tells me
The
that,
chills.
yes, there's something positive here that can't be neglected. And we have to use that right now,
Mhm.
because the world is in crisis.
Okay, so yeah, now you're in Boston. Bring me up to date on what kinds of groups are prominent around your city.
Well, yes,
I lived
Mass.
in Boston a couple of years back in the 60s, or about 1967 to 69, and I haven't been back there very much since then, but it was always a very lively place for organizers.
Yes, the biggest ones are there's a group called Mass Peace Action, and it's led by the executive director, Cole Harrison. He's excellent. He's such a great organizer and communicator. And then there's American Friends Service Committee, AFSC, which is run locally by Joseph Gerson, who is also the vice president of the International Peace Bureau. And he's very knowledgeable about all the nuclear problems and nuclear proliferation and trying to stop nuclear proliferation.
Yeah, I know him a little bit. For one thing, he was trying to organize this big event that was going to happen at the Non-Proliferation Review Conference in New York, but they had to cancel it because of COVID.
Well,
And
they just had a big one called GDAMS, and then there's also GCOMS, which is for demilitarization,
right.
and so and for nuclear stopping nuclear proliferation. But they're
Yes,
very organized.
I was on the board steering committee of the International Peace Bureau for 3 years. About 5
Wonderful.
years ago, I finished about then. And Gerson, is very active, of course, in that. Now, as you point out, he's the vice president. And good.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, and this GDAMS stood for
Global Day of Action Against Military Spending. And
Yes.
I think it was one day every year that we would try to get all the organized groups around the world, all the peace groups, to take some action to call attention to the wasteful misuse of money for military expenditures, which should, and how much more value we'd get from spending it on socially beneficial projects. But people said, well, we need more than one day to do that. So I think they changed it to something that gives them a week, a certain week of the year when everybody's supposed to do that.
I'm
And
glad you brought that up
yeah,
because a part of the plan is, and the main part of the plan is the promotion and marketing of the plan, and on a global scale. And but in telling you that, I want to mention that the International Peace Bureau had a program and an initiative called Peace and Planet. And they came together, they had a big meeting in Europe. And I'm very fortunate to be connected with Mr. Federico Mayor from Spain. He's the former Director General of UNESCO. And he
right.
told me that they had a big meeting of all the people for coming together for, I'm sorry, this one was Peace and Climate. And Disarm for Climate is what the name was.
Mhm.
And trying to bring together the climate movement and the peace movement. And he said it was a fantastic meeting, and the press in Europe hardly even covered it. He was fit to be tied when he talked to me because he takes these things emotionally to him in his heart because he's been involved with it for so long. He developed the culture of peace at the UN. And so when he told me that, I mentioned to him that this program with Global Movement of Nonviolence is the umbrella that covers all the people can unite under one umbrella. And yes, then that'll actually empower all the different different problems. For example, from Save the World and your 6 main points, those will gain strength when they are all coming together. And that's what your concept is, which is wonderful. And that's what caught my attention,
Mhm.
was
Yeah,
to save the world. And
yes.
we
Well, I
need
think
to make sure we're addressing those 6 main items that you have pointed out in your plan.
and they are
So,
so integrated in terms of the causes, you know. So if you're
yes,
working on one of them, you're actually generally working on one of the others also because they're all causally connected.
yes,
And so it's really important. Now, I want to suggest that, you know, you're thinking in terms of having women take the leadership role, which is certainly wonderful. But you know, it's not just for the children, but it can also be largely by the children, because these young people who are, I would say, this some of the strongest organizing that is going on in the world on climate change is being done by young people. I wish I had my magazine right here at hand so I could show you the cover. But about a year ago, you know, this Greta Thunberg is
oh,
she's marvelous, and she is. I betcha she could get more coverage than Federico Mayor. You know, I
oh,
mean,
absolutely.
you know, she
That's,
where she goes, the cameras follow.
well, you
But
hit it on the head.
and
When the women leaders come together and Greta Thunberg, there's a power there. And so that power creates more power, because this is all about power, because trying to change something, people are going to lose their power. So there's going to be a backlash against any movement. But there's the key. That's why it has to be nonviolent. And that's why I put it in the title.
Mhm.
The point that, and really that comes to me, that says, we have an opportunity right now because of Secretary General Guterres issuing a global ceasefire. And that ceasefire is the most profound action in the world right at the moment. And we have to utilize that right now. And because he's going to be in office for 1 more year. And he has a proclivity for wanting to be the peace promoter. That was when he first took office, that's what he said. And so do we use this power now or not? That's my question.
Mhm. Well, yes, but now let me finish my thought, which was, don't just count on the women to do all the organizing or the leadership, because the kids are, uh, my sense is that kids want to be in charge of things themselves sometimes. And they are doing such a spectacular job with climate organizing. And they have these Fridays for the Future movements and
The
demonstrations.
sunrise
Last year,
movement.
you know, unfortunately, COVID means that people have to stay home now. But while they were able to go out in the street, they were doing a spectacular job of on Fridays getting other kids to go on marches with them, and it was wonderful. The cover of our one of our Peace magazines last year had a 12-year-old girl in Vancouver with a bullhorn. You know, these megaphone things or electronic megaphones. It could really blast, and she was out there leading this march for the climate. 12-year-old girl, amazing, you know? Well, I think we should be supporting these kids. They are really in charge of their own thing with adults sort of helping them, but it's not the adults doing it, it's kids themselves. It's wonderful.
Well, that was my first exhibit, was all the young people, the youth in that article that I posted as an exhibit. And Greta Thunberg said it best.
Mhm.
She said, our world is on fire.
That's right.
And so this is an
Our
emergency.
home is on fire. That's on the cover of our magazine. Our house is on fire. Big letters.
Yes, on time. I
And
saw
it's
that.
true, unless people realize that this is not something we can take in an easy, slow pace. We have to hurry up and get on with it.
And
And
I
that,
have research that shows that throughout the world, the people want to do something right now. And so even Beatrice Finn from ICANN
right?
said that in Time magazine, no, I'm sorry, in the Nation magazine, that we need a feminist foreign policy. So my brochure that I have put together, it says it's time for women to lead a new global peace movement, and we're uniting hands around the world.
Tell me
So-
what it's going to look like when you say unite. What will we do together that we aren't doing now?
Yes. Well, everyone is doing beautiful job, and it's essential that they continue doing it. So we're not trying to ask anyone to stop what they're doing. What we are going to ask them to do is promote the mother movement. So, for example, and notice I called it mother movement because it's women leading the way.
Okay.
But just like Mother Earth. So what we're going to ask people to do is, while they're promoting their own movement, to also promote the mother movement, a global movement of nonviolence, and that women are leading the way. So if you want to work with the movement, there are jobs that will be available, volunteers that will be available, volunteer activities, so that people can answer the question, what can I do? Because every meeting that I've gone to, when there's speakers, prominent speakers, and they ask people in the audience to ask questions, there's always someone that says, what can I do?
Okay, how right now, if somebody, I don't want to wait a year for this. If there's an email address or a website or something, you want to tell us now how they could get in touch with you?
Yes, I have it right here as a share. So
Okay, let's see. There you go. Take it down, folks. There's a phone number, and there's Andre at globalstrategyofnonviolence.org. And the website is www.gsofnv.org. I don't know, does all that have to be in caps or does it matter?
no, it doesn't matter.
All right.
I just did it just so you can see, easier to be able to see the letters.
Okay, now you got to take it down so I can say goodbye to you. I want to see your face when we say goodbye. Thank you. Here we are. We're about through. So I wanna say good wishes for your project, and let's stay in touch.
And I want to thank
Right.
you for the opportunity very much. And with your work, I commend you and Save the World. We have to come together and everyone's working hard. So let's keep going.
We'll do it. Bless you. All right.
Thank you.
Great